Well, happy anniversary, Cap fans. Welcome to episode 220 of the Captain America Comic Book Fans Podcast. I'm Rick Verbanis. I'm your host, and I've got a co host. It's the best one out there, at least for 4 years now. His name is Bob Lucius. Oh, Bob. I'm Mr. White Christmas. I'm Mr. Snow. I'm Mr. Icicle. I'm Mr. Ten Below. Friends call me Snow Miser. Whatever I touch turns to snow in my clutch. I'm too much.
You are too much, Rick. You
Uh,
are.
how are
Nice.
you?
One of my favorites.
Yeah?
Uh,
Do you know what that's from?
yeah. Was it the year without Santa Claus?
It was. It was a
Yeah.
year without Santa
You
Claus.
boys.
That's right. And then Heat Miser, right? Oh,
Yeah, Heat Miser.
good stuff. That came out in 1974. So Bob, why am I greeting you with a classic Christmas tale?
It is our annual Festivus special. I mean, no, it's our Christmas special.
It's our holiday special.
Oh, good point. You're right.
Yeah.
Good
But
point.
more
We're
importantly,
inclusive.
it's our
Yeah.
anniversary.
Yeah, it is our
Uh,
anniversary.
Now, it's our fourth anniversary, Bob, and I looked it up. And for a fourth anniversary, traditionally speaking,
Is that
the gift
pearls
is
or
supposed to
something?
be flowers or fruit.
Oh,
Something that shows that your relationship is blooming.
yeah.
And then they say contemporary anniversaries celebrate by getting a new household appliance.
Oh, ooh, nice,
Yeah.
nice. I told you that story about the time I sent a box full of bananas to
Yeah.
young, and it came all rotten, and she couldn't even read the card because it was so juicy, and she wondered what she had done wrong to anger me so.
Yeah. And then I followed up your story with my story about the card that I had about the said, guess what I got you for your birthday? Zip.
Yeah, right.
We all make mistakes,
That
Bob.
wasn't that somebody you met in economics class or something?
It
Was
was a
that
philosophy
a
class.
full
Yeah.
philosophy class? Oh well, she should have gotten it then. That was like Nietzsche or something. Right? I
Yeah, exactly.
don't
Exactly.
know.
Yeah. So, Bob, anniversary. So this is a special episode, right? We
Mhm.
do a lot in this episode, and we're going to be covering a lot. Now, before we get started, I am wearing the cap onesie that you got me for Christmas a couple of years ago. And hold on, let me put my hood up. This is really for the people who are watching the video right now. All right, wait, what do you think? Do I look? Do I look like Steve Rogers?
You look more like Mushmouth from Fat
I
Albert
know,
the
right?
day.
Hey, Alabama. That's
That's it.
exactly what I
That's
thought when I saw this.
yeah, that's it
Right,
right there. Yeah,
yeah.
nice.
All right.
Oh,
But anyway, yeah, I ordered a.
I'd love to see you go for a walk in your neighborhood, just sometime around 10 p.m. at night. Just take a walk around the block with that hood up, the whole thing. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah. See how many calls to the police get.
Yeah. Uh, I actually had something planned to wear tonight. I ordered a Captain America ugly Christmas sweater.
Ooh, yeah,
And it was one of those ads on Facebook,
like
in your
Merchoid or
feed.
something. Yeah,
Huh? Yeah. Well,
Merchoid.
I'm not going to say the name of the company,
Yeah. Well,
but
I
I
only say
will.
that because I looked into it, and they ship from England, so it was.
This one, they say ships from Mexico.
Oh,
And
right,
so it means it's going to get here in time for Valentine's Day.
right, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I should have read the fine print because it shipped a week ago.
yeah.
Now we're recording this, hey, by the way, Merry Christmas to everybody who celebrates Christmas. Because if you're listening to this on the day it comes out, it's actually Christmas. And but we're recording this a couple weeks earlier, and I ordered it on December 5th, and today's December 12th. And so, I'm sorry, I didn't order it. It's shipped right on December 5th, and it gave me a tracking code with this shipping company I've never heard before in my entire life.
Yeah.
And I go to that company, I put in the code, and it's like, this code doesn't exist. And I'm like,
Yeah.
huh. So then I go to contact us and I
Yeah.
call the number, and the number doesn't really exist.
I love that.
No, it was worse than that. It was
Yeah.
because they're in New Mexico for the phone number, right? It was like a
Yeah.
555 number or something. And
Yeah.
so I called the number and it rings and rings and rings, and then it picks up, and it's an automated thing,
Hmm.
and it's in some sort of Asian language I don't know.
Oh, right, right. Yeah. That
And
makes
I
sense.
and I'm like, and then it hangs
Yeah.
up on you.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Why
So
does
they
that
were,
make sense?
well, to me, because these things are all like produced in China, right? Or Vietnam. And then they get shipped through an intermediary, right? So sometimes it's in the United, sometimes it's Canada, sometimes it's Mexico. So they're probably not made in Mexico. They're probably, so you probably got the line for the company, and it's probably, a Chinese company. Not that there's anything wrong with that, because you can get good stuff. But yeah, it takes a while on that air packet to get there from through Shanghai. And I've ordered stuff, obviously, and as I'm sure you probably have, and our listeners have, from China. It takes a while.
Yeah. So
Takes a
anyway,
while.
but I'm wearing this
Yeah,
onesie, and it's
yeah,
comfy.
yeah. You look
I'm
cozy.
cozy in
Yeah,
this. Yeah.
nice, good. They got some great. Not like when we were kids, Rick. They've got some nice Captain America Christmas sweaters
Mm-hmm.
these days,
Yeah,
right?
my wife, I showed her a picture of it, and she goes, "Well, it wasn't my wife. Who was it? It was somebody at work, maybe." And they were like, "Oh, that's that's a little over the top, isn't it?" I'm like, "That's the point. Like, you don't get the subtle, ugly
No.
Christmas sweater, you know?"
Yeah. See, now, like I went to I'm a big Marshalls TJ Maxx sort of guy.
Yeah, yeah, sure. I've been there.
Yeah, and so I have to do a bank run at least like every other week for work. And there's a TJ Maxx and a Ross right next to the bank. So
Mm-hmm.
I always like zip over there, mostly to see if there's anything cool for my son. But they had some fantastic collections of Christmas sweaters at TJ Maxx and
Mm-hmm.
Ross, and some really funny ones. But I'm like, it's Naples, Florida. Like, there's nowhere I can wear a Christmas sweater, right? So I took some pictures that I sent to my wife, and she said, "Oh, get one for the cruise." And I'm like, "It's a Caribbean cruise. Like, where am I going to wear a Christmas sweater on a Caribbean cruise?" As badly as I want them, I just couldn't justify them.
That's fair.
It's a
That's
good,
fair.
we're living in amazing times for Christmas sweaters, right? That's all I'm
Well,
saying.
we really are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
magical.
Yeah, and of course, once you look at something, it's on your feed and everywhere you go, right? And it's like, here's this ad, here's this ad,
Yeah,
here's this
yeah.
ad.
Even if it's not, even if it's, you haven't looked at it, because we were looking at rugs on Casey's phone, my wife Casey, and
Mm-hmm.
now all I get are ads for rugs.
Yeah, right.
So yeah.
Yeah. I know what Meg's looking up, right? And then that dawned on me, and I'm like, oh no. What is she getting on her phone? uh
Hmm.
oh, so Bob,
What's with all these
yeah.
dating service ads? Hmm.
Um So, the agenda for today,
Mm.
we have got a lot to cover. And so we have a fun theme, as we do every anniversary episode. And we like to tie it in with the holidays. And so we challenged our listeners, what classic holiday story would you recast with Captain America characters? And so we gave a couple of examples. There's the Red Skull who stole Christmas, things like that. And so we're going to get to those. Our listeners did not disappoint. We have a lot of audio shared and a couple of videos too. So we'll get to those throughout the show. We're also going to take a look back at our favorite episodes and favorite interviews from 2024. Bob and I will exchange gifts on air. That's always exciting because I have stuff right here that came in the mail that I have to open.
Oh, thank
Um,
goodness it came. Yes.
yeah, and then yeah, I got it today. Um, and then we're also going to revisit the 2024 bucket list and see what we checked off on that. And then some new topics for the 2025 bucket list. And then
Excellent.
speaking of 2025, we will also announce our long tail story that we will kick off the year and what our Cap Madness bracket will be in March. And Bob, it wouldn't be a special if we didn't have a special villain call in with their holiday special recasting.
Oh, interesting. Interesting. Okay, I look forward to that.
Yeah.
Well, that is a lot to cover, Rick. So, yeah, I think people are getting their money's worth out of this
Mm.
show.
Um, and speaking of money's worth, I also need to reach out. We do have a handful of loyal patrons to the show that do donate, and we appreciate that immensely. It does help with our expenses and you know allows us to keep continue to do what we do. So thank you for that. And I need to reach out to the patrons because things have changed with Spotify as far as allowing people to donate. So I have to find a new thing. So guess what I'm going to be doing during my holiday break? I'm going to be doing all kind of research for that. And then so stay tuned, listeners, if you do want to help be a patron of the show. We will give you more details on that soon. The other thing too, speaking of funds, we want to remind people that we do have a GoFundMe that we are doing for a very worthy cause, and it is the American Heart Association. And we're doing this in honor of a recent birthday for artist John Cassidy. He passed earlier this year, and it was, due to heart complications. And so we thought, in honor of his birthday, we would do a fundraiser. And so one of the things that you can do if you go and there's a link in the show notes. You can, any donation gets you entered into a contest to win this amazing comic written by Jeff Loeb and drawn by John Cassidy. It's the last part of Fallen Sun, the death of Captain America, which is acceptance. And as you can see here, there are 18 different Cap creators that autographed this book. It was graciously donated to us by Seth Offenberger, and so we're going to be giving that away. All you have to do is make a donation into the GoFundMe that goes directly to the American Heart Association, and it's tax deductible. If you were looking for something before the end of the year for a tax deduction, this is a good one. And then also you can get a free entry into the contest. All you have to do is go to our YouTube channel and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and then share one of our videos on your social media and send us a screenshot, and boom, you're automatically entered into the contest. So, Bob, that is another thing that we did in 2024 is we launched a YouTube channel.
You did do I mean, you did an amazing job putting that together, Rick, I have to say. And the extra work that goes into editing those episodes, but it really does add a certain layer to what had previously been just sort of an audio experience. And I think it really takes it up a notch for folks who haven't checked those out yet.
Yeah, please do check out our YouTube channel because we do have several different playlists that you can go on there. And I mean, currently, I think we have 50 plus videos that we've got on there from this year. And but they're listed in playlists. So you can do our specials, which is something like this would fall underneath. You can do our interviews. You can look at our panel by panel dramas of the particular issue comics. There's also our long tail lists, right? So you can go in there and say, oh, I want to check out the Secret Empire. Well, boom, boom, boom. Very easy for you to find. So, yeah, check out our YouTube channel. It's growing. It's growing. Still, by far, most people listen to the podcast, which I totally get. But we encourage people to check it out. It is fun seeing the visual element that goes along with this as well.
Not to mention just seeing us, right?
Wow. Usually it's
So
my expression of amazement to the things that you say, Bob.
thank you, Rick. Thank you. That means a lot.
Mm, it wasn't a compliment, but okay.
It's the
You know, one
it's
of
the
the things that I was
the
really
best I'm
amazed
gonna
about,
get. So yes, I'm taking it.
you know, one of the things that I was absolutely amazed about this year in 2024, when I look back on 2024, Bob,
Uh-huh.
and I think of things that I was amazed by
Yeah.
that came out of your mouth.
Yeah.
Uh, I think the by far the highest one was uh, when when the light bulb went over your head
Yeah.
and you were like, "Oh, time capsule." We've only been
Yes.
doing this for a few years, right? Where we're at the end of
Right.
every thing
Yeah.
we pick, what are we going to
Right.
put in our time capsule? And
Yeah.
I say it like that, time capsule. And
Right.
I don't know, did you
Yeah.
think I had some sort of speech impediment or
Well, I
but
just
the light bulb went off.
I did. I mean, for years you've been saying Munster, so I just figured it was it was just the way you pronounced it. Just you accentuated the capsule.
All right.
Yeah, but it makes sense, perfect sense now. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Sort of like when we have people on during the night caps.
yeah. The night caps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or when we
Wow.
have guests on talking about their art captivated.
Yes, yes. I'm
Right.
seeing a pattern here.
Yeah. Okay.
Nice. Yeah, I wasn't very good at Clue.
Yeah. Or when we have we don't do the acting out and we actually just talk about the comics. It's called a recap.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
All right.
Yeah,
Have I
it's
hit
coming.
you in the head
It's
enough
coming.
with?
Starting to like connecting the strings to the
Okay.
thumbtacks. It's coming together. Yeah.
Bob, let's go ahead and we've had a lot of submissions
Yes, we have.
for the holiday special recasting. Let's get to Mr. Tom Boyd.
So my idea for a cap revamp of a classic Christmas story would be Home Alone. You could use a young Bucky in the 1940s, Christmas time in Europe, and he's recuperating from an injury on an army base that maybe stores some kind of weird MacGuffin or information that the Nazis want. And so Heinrich Zemo and Masterman, so you've got the brains and the brawn, are trying to infiltrate this base. And because Cap's away on a mission, it's up to Bucky to use his wits and devices and tricks and traps to thwart their plans. And before Cap comes home and finds them all tied up with a triumphant Bucky at the end of the day. And that is just under a minute. Go me.
All right. Well, go you, Tom.
I gotta say, just look, if Tom, if you're listening, please don't take this the wrong way, but damn, you got a sexy, silky voice. What reminds Rick? Have you ever seen that little skit with Idris Elba? It's not Idris Elba, but it's a guy who plays Idris Elba, and he's
I don't
like,
know.
he goes into like a neutron collider, and he's like, "What's going on here?" And he goes into his, just like a coffee shop, and he's like, "I can work here. I can make and he's like, "I'm Idris Elba." Yeah, and his voice sounds just like Tom Boyd, and so every time I hear Tom talk, I can hear Idris. I can see Idris Elba.
Okay.
So yeah, just
Well, first of all, when he said "go me," that's
mhm.
because Tom was challenged to keep it under a minute, and
Yeah, yeah,
that's a little tough for Tom.
yeah,
So go you, Tom. Good job.
yeah.
And I am a little annoyed with you, Tom. I am a little annoyed because I was gonna do Home Alone.
Rick's been talking about Home Alone in the background for weeks. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I was like the story that I wanted to do, and I like your version. Don't get me wrong. I think it's a really clever version. You have me at MacGuffin,
yeah,
but
absolutely. Yeah,
the Home Alone I wanted to do was a depowered Steve Rogers, who, for whatever reason, he's depowered and he's a young kid again. Could go back to the Mark Grunwald, Al Milgrom story, where he was turned into a teenager by Cersei, whatever. I don't know. Whatever the reason, he is depowered and he's young again, but he still has his smarts. And so the base is being infiltrated. So he sets these, booby traps and just like Macaulay Culkin's character. And I was going down that path and trying to figure that out. And then you sent your submission in. And I was like, curses. I had to pivot. But anyway, that
He
was
did.
fun.
He did it. I mean, it's a very credible story. I mean, I would enjoy reading a comic book with with this plot line. I think it's great. I can see a little Bucky, young teenage Bucky, using all those tricks and traps and messing with Zemo and Masterman. I mean, I think it's very, very clever. And I have to admit, I did have to look up MacGuffin. The only familiarity I had with MacGuffin was Inspector MacGuffin from Erica Idle's. I think he had a play, and then it was made into like a movie called What About Dick? And there was an Inspector MacGuffin in that. But I did have to look up MacGuffin, so maybe it's used more casually in everyday conversation on the other side of the pond. But I didn't know what it was.
Well, it's wow, I can't believe I actually knew something that Bob didn't. That
There you go.
never, ever, ever happens.
Well,
Um,
you've got theater in the blood, Rick.
it's true. So Bob, you know what? Let's just get right into 2024 favorite episodes. And we had obviously, 50 some episodes to pick from, except for the interviews, right? Interviews we kind of separate. But as far as the non-interviews, what would you say was your favorite episode of 2024?
I there were so many good ones, Rick. I love the fact that we did the Cap President. I loved the What If story that we have done. But I really enjoyed our discussion. It was a special episode, Nightcap, with Nate Charles, right, where we talked about the top 10 Cap uniforms. And the reason I like that so much is, one is I love when we have a guest on, particularly when it's one of our listeners. Because he's a fellow fan, right? Not that the writers and artists aren't fans, but there's just something special about one of our peers in the group who comes on, and somebody who's passionate about something, whether it's art or foreign editions. In this case, it's Nate who's passionate about cosplay, and that's something that's it's always interested me. I don't, not something I've ever done. But having him on and getting a chance to talk about that a little bit with him, but then giving him the opportunity to talk about those 10 Cap uniforms that we have seen, and then argue about some of the ones that weren't represented and why they weren't represented. That was a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed that. It was a great conversation, and I came away feeling like I knew Nate better, and I was better for it.
The other thing cool that came from that was he did a poll in the Facebook group, and to see what's the next one he should cosplay. And I believe was it the captain that got voted, or was
I,
it
I
Commander Rogers?
I think it was the captain. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Which is one you don't see very often.
Yeah.
So
I,
that
I
would be
also
cool.
think Nomad was up there high too.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we only had a long discussion about who could pull off that plunging neckline.
It wasn't me. Speaking of Nate Charles, he sent in a submission too. Do you want to listen to that one?
Yeah, let's do that.
Hi, this is Nate Charles here, and for my classic holiday tale, I'd like to put a Captain America twist on a Christmas story, wherein young Steve Rogers dreams of getting a vibranium shield for Christmas, but everyone, including Peggy Carter and Dr. Erskine, warn, "You'll break your arm off, kid." Alongside his best friend, Bucky Barnes, Steve will face off against the local bully, Johann Schmidt, who will triple dog dare Bucky to stick his arm into a frozen drain pipe. The dare goes horribly wrong and costs Bucky his arm due to frostbite, and will lead Howard Stark to gift him a prototype replacement, which doubles as a lamp that proves anything but fragile. On
Must be
Christmas morning,
French.
Steve finally gets his shield, but when he throws it, the shield will ricochet back, and due to his inexperience, he's going to bruise his arm. But despite this mishap, Steve will later reflect on this being the best gift he will ever receive. Happy anniversary, Rick and Bob.
Ah, thank you, Nate. We appreciate you
Oh
sending that
man.
story and the anniversary wishes. Yeah, Nate's a great guy. We enjoy having him on the show. That I like. Listen, a Christmas story, that's a classic.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, and a double dog dare. What do you do? I mean, you can't avoid that, right? You can't say no.
Well, yeah, maybe Bucky would have an arm if he didn't.
Yeah, good use of a classic story repurposed for a Steve Rogers Bucky Barnes story. So well done, Nate.
So when I was a kid, when did A Christmas Story come out? Like 1980, something like that. Um, and so I was still young, obviously a kid, and I had this wavy blonde hair and these dark rim glasses, and everybody thought I looked like Ralphie. And so that was the thing, It was like, oh, it's Ralphie, and I was, um,
Oh my gosh. Oh my
yeah,
gosh. Yeah, I see it. I see it.
not now. Can't see it now. Now I,
Well, with the onesie, yes.
yeah,
Didn't he have like a
uh,
bunny one or something?
yeah, exactly,
Right.
right, yeah,
Right.
with the pink
Yeah.
bunny, right, with the
Yeah. I was gonna say, Rick, do you have a favorite episode from this year?
It's so hard to pick. We had so much fun, so much laughs and so on. But um, I I'm gonna go with two episodes, and when you go like you can't do that, and I'm like, well, you'll understand when I say it,
Is
but
that a loophole?
no, no, it's
Oh,
not a
all
loophole.
right.
Well,
Yeah.
no, it is. It combines two of my biggest passions, right? Comic books and fantasy football. And that is the two episodes where we had the Captain America comic book fantasy draft. And we had Bob, did you pick up the play on words there?
The fantasy? No, I don't
Yes.
know. Yeah.
Yes. Captain America comic book fantasy draft. I
It's
just
amazing. You're like a master weaver of words.
what can I say? I like a good pun.
Yeah.
So anyway, we had two episodes. We had one in April and we had one in early September to where we invited two listeners onto the show, and the four of us had a draft of Captain America characters, and for to form our own personal story that we had in mind. And there was a lot of great ideas, a lot of gnashing of teeth, mostly me when my characters get stolen.
Right. Yeah. A lot of
And
sniping.
so speaking of Tom Boyd,
Yeah.
he was on the show on the last one we did. So those are some highlights for me.
Yeah. I'm still trying to read through his summary of his story. I'm not to the end yet, so
Yeah,
it's quite extensive.
and that's the summary. Yeah. Speaking of guests on the show, Bob, um, we've had some amazing creators on the show, artists, writers, editors, and this year we've taken it up a notch where we've had letterers and also technical artists.
Yeah.
So it's really cool. So just going chronologically, some guests we have on the show. We had Jackson Lansing and Colin Kelly, the Hive Mind. They returned to the show for their third time, and this time they came on to discuss the Central Liberty series coming to an end. And it was very honest and open about a series they put their hearts into, and it coming to an end. And then also they previewed their Thunderbolts miniseries, so that was good. After that, we had Paul Jenkins on the show. Now he's an Eisner Award winner, and he came on to talk about Captain America Mythos, which previously we had the artist Paulo Rivera on, and also Theater of War, which was a series of one shots, and it was really cool because Paul talked about his why for Captain America, and that's something that he really brings into any of the characters he writes on he comes up with a why, um, and talked about how he became a Cap fan and also how working on Cap really moved him emotionally. It was a really heartfelt interview.
It really
And
was. Yeah. Yeah. And he, and those are great books. If you haven't read those books that he contributed to, please, pick them up because, as Rick is hinting at, there's a backstory in Paul's own life that informed the way that he approached Cap in those. So well worth listening to.
100%. And then after that, we had what I consider a coup. We had J. Michael Straczynski, JMS himself, on the show, award-winning writer. He's been out of comics for a while. He came back to comics, and his first thing that he wrote was the new Captain America series that just recently ended. And so JMS talked about why he came back to comics and why he chose Cap, his personal role models for an inspiration. And then we finally got to talk to the man himself to find out what was the meaning, the real meaning behind the Cap's "plant yourself like a tree" speech. So that was well worth it just for that reason.
Yeah, absolutely was. Well, it was a very engaging interview, and he was so forthcoming in what he had to share with us, and it's just a very dynamic conversation. So if you haven't heard that one, listeners, go back and listen to that one because it's worth your time.
The next one we had was Chip Zdarsky, and Chip is a writer. He's an illustrator, and he talked about his new Avengers Twilight series that came out in 2024, which is a great futuristic story. A la like a Dark Knight Returns type of story, and so he talked about his love for Cap and so on, and then Brian Hitch, now, Brian Hitch is an amazing artist, and he worked with Cap on a few different elements. He worked on the Ultimates, and so designing all of the Ultimate characters, including Steve Rogers, and then also Captain America Reborn miniseries with Mark Waid, and of course he also has a new series out called Redcoat, which he talked about. So he was an interesting guy to have on the show.
It was, and one of the nice things about this is you're always very very what's the word I'm looking for? Like you never forget, Rick, to ask the guests who come on for interviews about what they're working on and what they've got coming forward. And it's an opportunity for them to share with our listeners things that had nothing to do with Cap. And it was really interesting to me because I don't know about you, but I had not yet heard of the Redcoat series, and I picked up a couple issues and read through them, and it's been a really great read. So yeah, we love Cap, and these interviews are 99% about Cap, but sometimes you get some nuggets of other great reads, other great pieces of art, and you get turned on to them, and it opens up your vistas a little bit. So
Yep,
good stuff.
100%. Yeah, and if you've ever wondered what a letterer does on comics, we had Joe Caramagna on, and he's been a letterer for 25 years for Marvel, and specifically he's done many Captain Americas. And so he answered all our lettering questions. And he worked with Ed Brubaker, Mark Waid, JMS, and he had a real cool story about how he ended up on the Drew Barrymore show.
That was a good story. Yeah.
Next, we had another change of pace. We had Elliot R. Brown, and most people are like, I don't know that name, but you know his work. And if he is a technical artist. So he was the one who drew the weapons, the vehicles, the buildings that you saw in the official handbook of the Marvel Universe, and many other comics as well. And he was also responsible for dozens of the photo covers that you might remember from the 70s and 80s. And he had, oh my God, he had a ton of tales about the Marvel bullpen and 70s, 80s, 90s. So if you're looking for stories about the names you know from Marvel creators during that time, that was a heck of a conversation.
Yeah, and he just scratched the surface, Rick. I imagine of his lore. So he's the sort of guy I think we could go back to again and again and again, and have great conversations. And like a lot of us, I know you and I were big fans of his work as kids, and so it was a real treat to have him.
The next writer we had on was Steve Orlando. Now, Steve, he's been around for about 17 years. He's an award-winning writer, and he got into the current Avengers Assemble series that he's writing, and he talked about um, why Captain America is one of his all-time favorite characters. In fact, he didn't want the interview to end. He was like, "Let's stick around and let's just talk about, who are our favorite non-Steve, Sam, Bucky Caps." So that was a lot of fun talking with him.
It was. It was a little disappointing for me. It turns out he wasn't the tie yellow ribbon guy, but it was a good conversation nevertheless.
Yeah. Mark White, he's the professor of philosophy and author of Virtues of Captain America. He returned to the show. I think this was maybe his third time, and talked about his new edition, which had additional topics to cover, such Hydra Cap and Sam Wilson. And then we had on another duo, and this is Greg Pak and Evan Narcisse. And they are the writers of the upcoming Captain America series starring Sam Wilson. And so it was interesting to hear them and dive into Sam and the new series. And it was actually kind of cool. They'd shared what their relationship with was Marvel Studios, and so it got me really interested in this new Sam series.
Yeah, me too. And they were very just like Lansing and Kelling, right? The hive mind. These guys clearly they've worked together for a while. They work well together. They finish each other's sentences. But there's a certain dynamic that comes when we have like two guests on at the same time, where they just interact well, and it just raises the amount of energy in an interview where maybe they're less likely to hold back, right? Because they're feeding each other. And so
Yeah.
this was a great conversation and really exciting. And I wasn't all that familiar with either of their work previously, but it got me really excited about what they're working on, and not just with Cap, but other projects as well.
And then our latest interview, uh, man, talk about feedback. Because we love getting feedback from our listeners, whether that's comments in the YouTube or on the Facebook page or things like that. But this one generated a lot of, wow, I learned so much. And this was when we had longtime writer Fabian Nicieza, and he came on to talk about. He wrote Adventures of the Captain America miniseries back in 1990, 91. And man, the stories behind what went into that miniseries, including getting his roommate Kevin McGuire come back from DC to Marvel, and then what happened there. Why didn't Kevin finish the book? So that was interesting. And then he talked a lot about the Jack Monroe Nomad series, because he wrote the miniseries, he wrote the long ongoing series, and talked a lot about Nomad. So that was really insightful, and talk about a guy who can really tell a story.
Absolutely. And again, a guy that's maybe been away from, at least from Marvel Comics for a while, certainly away from Cap for a while, but brings us back to when we were younger and reading these books, and giving us a new perspective on things that we thought we knew, and adding a little more depth and texture to it. So great interview. Yeah.
Absolutely, Bob.
Rick, I mean that's a lot to pick from, and I would not be surprised if you had a difficult time, picking one as your favorite. But unfortunately, those are the rules. So, what's your favorite interview for this year?
You're right. That was so tough. Thank you to all the guests that came on the show. Every one of them I enjoyed. If I had to pick a favorite, I'm going to have to go with Elliot Brown. Um, that man was a hoot. He's so charming, has so many stories, and thank God we actually started the YouTube channel because we could get video because you do yourself if you listen to the interview, do yourself a favor, watch the video next because he had so many expressions, so many winks to the camera. It was a lot of fun. In fact, I enjoy my time with him so much. I actually met with him. He lives in New York. I live in New Jersey, and we each drove a bit of a distance, and we met on a Saturday afternoon and for lunch, and just to talk. And he also had a bunch of some art that has been in his portfolio for since the original, since in the 80s and 90s, that I was able to buy some of those, and so very fortunate. But I really just enjoy the man. He's so sincere, and I had a great time.
Yes, I mean, as I recall, it was hard to end that episode. Hard to end the interview. He could have gone for another hour. Would have been awesome to go for another hour with him, because I don't think he was losing any of his enthusiasm and vigor as we went along. So I know we had talked for months about the possibility of getting him on the show. So I'm like super grateful that you were able to lock that down and get him on the show, because I know for folks like you and I, and for many others who have enjoyed his work over the years. And he doesn't get a lot of playtime, doesn't get a lot of coverage these days, but he is foundational to many of the things that we know and love as Marvel fans.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. How about you, Bob? Were you able to pick a favorite interview from 2024?
Well, yes, I was. Rick. I initially I was leaning toward the episode 214, the interview with Greg Pak and Evan Narcisse, but because I love the dynamicism, and again it was all new to me, and so very informative, very entertaining. But I had to go. I mean, I got to go with episode 208, which is our catch up with Professor Mark D. White. Because I think you and I both agree Captain America is a phenomenal moral exemplar. Even in the fictional world, there's a lot that we can learn. And so Professor White's book about the virtues of Captain America has a lot to teach us. And I love the fact that he updated his book in the revised edition with a lot of new material, all the way up through the more recent Secret Empire run, all the way up through 2017. And there's a lot to plumb there for wisdom. And we spent a lot of time in that interview really digging deep into those revised chapters and the new material. And it was a really forthright, engaging conversation. I gained a lot from it. I went back after our interview and read some more, or in some cases, reread those revised sections. And every time I go back, I get something more. So I love having Mark on the show. Hope we have him on again. But it definitely was my favorite episode of the year.
Yeah, it's always great having Mark on the show. Certainly enjoy it because just talk. It's one of those things where he's studied Captain America, right? And so he had, and as a professor of philosophy, he has some insights into, just outlooks on the world and how Cap plays into that. And I'll never forget. I mean, the first time we had him on the show, it was, can a fictional character become a role model? And the answer is unequivocally yes. And the reason being is that it's a North Star. It's not somebody that necessarily will be flawed. I mean, yes, the writers do write in some things like that, but it's unlike they say don't meet your heroes, right? Because you'll ultimately at some point be disappointed because of the human nature. Well, at least in a fictional character, there's always that area, that North Star that you maybe you'll never achieve, but the goal is to work towards that. And so it's always a great conversation with him.
Yeah. Yeah. Can't wait to have him back.
All right, we have another submission, Bob. It's from listener Tom Ratcliffe. Should we get to that?
Yeah, let's do this one.
Hey, Rick. Hey, Bob. My idea for a Cap-related Christmas story will be based on Elf, where the elves find Cap buried in ice, and he has to come back to New York in the present day. Keep up the good work, and happy holidays to you both.
All right.
right.
Well, short and sweet.
Short and sweet. I like the concept. Rather than the Avengers finding him, the elves find him. Very nice.
Yeah. And you got to come to New York.
You got to. Hey, there's a tie-in, right? I mean, there's an elf tie-in to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, at least.
What's that?
Well, we got Peter Dinklage, who was in Infinity War, right? He's an elf, and Elf was directed by Jon Favreau. So happy Hogan.
That's true.
So there you go. We got a tie-in.
Yeah. Yeah. Elf is one of those movies my kids and I watch every year. That is such a fun movie.
It is. It's a sweet movie. Right?
It's probably my favorite Will Ferrell movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Other than what's that one where he plays the fraternity brother? It was one of his earlier ones. I can't remember.
Oh yeah, I can't. Yeah, I can't remember the name of it right now.
It's got like Luke Wilson and
yeah. No, but Elf is so sweet, so cute, and you gotta love Bob Newhart.
Oh, and Ed Asner, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
No, and Zoe, right?
Yeah.
Is it Zoe or is
she's a cutie.
Yeah, I can't remember which one's which.
Yeah.
Zoe, right?
Yeah. So in 2024, Bob, we kicked off a new recap segment where we take a story and we review, but do not act out the panels by panel, because we had some listeners who were like, you know what, we prefer that. So we said, okay, well, we'll offer that. And so we did that. We did 4 times this year. We did a recap. We did in episode 172, we did the Theater of War. So there's 7 one-shots. And so that would be too much to cover, panel by panel. So we did a recap of those. So if you want Bob mentioned earlier, do yourself a favor and read those. Well, if you don't want to read them, you can listen to episode 172 and we'll take you through them. Episode 177, we had John Sewell on the show and helped us recap the new JMS series, volume 11.
Oh, right.
And so we did the first story arc, issues 1 through 6. So if you haven't checked out the JMS series, do check out episode 177. That'll give you an overview of it. And we all took a turn, recapping that. Episode 189 is when we did volume 6, which was the Ed Brubaker series with Steve McNiven. We did the first story arc. Episodes 1 through 5, or issues 1 through 5. And then not too long ago, episode 202, we did a Deadpool story that features Wolverine and Captain America. And this was in Deadpool Volume 5. So it was a 4-part or 5-part story. And John Sewell made it back for that. So those are always fun, doing the recaps. And it's fun having John on as a kind of like an unofficial third co-host.
Yeah. He plays an effective foil to you, so I appreciate that.
What, you need all the help you can get, right?
I need all the help I can get. That's right. So,
well, John actually called in to give us a greeting.
Oh, he did he?
Hey guys, it's your buddy John. Just wanted to drop a message and say happy anniversary. And also to say my favorite moment from this year has got to be the ensemble cast production, man. That was so much fun. Total blast. Got to play Batroc again. Always fun. And everybody just did an amazing job. So Again, happy anniversary and happy holidays, everybody. Talk to you soon.
Well, thank you, John. Yeah, that was a real close second for me when we're talking about favorite episodes this year was episode 200 when we did the community theater.
John's such a good guy. He just brings some light and joy to the show, and it comes through in his greeting. And he's right that it took a lot of players to make that happen, but the end product was definitely worth the time and effort for everybody.
Yeah, it was episode 200. We want to do something special for that. And so we covered Captain America 400 and 401. It was the Galactic Storm story. And we had a director. We had, I want to say, 18 different people doing voices. And then it was, we had some rehearsals, we had some auditions, and it was a lot of fun. So if you get a chance, check that out, episode 200. And we will do that again next summer. And we have to come up with an idea on what the story is going to be.
Yeah, it's not easy. I know you put a lot of work in, as did the cast, trying to come up with a story that had enough parts to allow everyone an opportunity to participate. So, kudos for all the prep work that went into that.
Some other specials that we did this year. We did the Would You Rather. So it was questions from our listeners, and we had a little spinning wheel, and it was answer the questions that they provided us, and so that was a fun game that we played, right? And then we had one of our nightcap specials was Nate Charles was on, and you mentioned did the top 10 cap uniforms. You did a historical look over the last 90 years of Cap meeting the president.
Yeah, a lot of them, a lot more than maybe most folks anticipate. And we talked about every incidence of when Cap met a president in the comics. So and he met most of them. So an impressive run.
And then also a couple of other specials I already mentioned was the Captain America fantasy draft. So we did number 2 and number 3 of that. And number 2, we had Grant Ball and Mark Domeyer on the show, and they drafted against us. In fact, Grant and Mark had sent in their submissions for a recasting of a Christmas special. So let's get to Grant first.
All right.
Hey, Rick and Bob. Happy Capiversary. This is Grant Baugh. And for my Christmas story, I want to do one starring my favorite villain, the Tumbler. And I want this to be a retelling of It's a Wonderful Life, where the Tumbler in the afterlife, I guess, is wondering about what the world would have been like if he had never been born. And so somebody, Uatu the Watcher, I guess, shows him what the world would have been like if he had never been born. And it's exactly the same as the regular universe with one or two changes to account for his absence. I just think that it'd be a great story for that character.
Aww.
Well, happy holidays, everybody.
I've often wondered what the world would be like without Michael Keane. So yeah. I want to know what those one or two incidents are. Those one or two major changes that Grant has teased.
I don't know, but I mean they're minor. So I think the joke was that nothing really changed. Much like I think most people who read Marvel comics, they're like, "Who's the Tumbler? Tumbler died? What?"
Yes.
Yeah.
He's the knockoff Leaper.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, and then as I mentioned, Grant's cope. I don't know the other league member of that fantasy draft was Mark Domeyer, and he actually sent a video in, so we can watch Mark's submission here.
Hi, Rick and Bob. I've got a Christmas special for you, Captain America style. That would be the Peanuts Charlie Brown Christmas special. Here's all your characters. Charlie Brown would actually be played by Sam Wilson. I want him to be front and center for this one. dealing with a lot of action and stuff like that. His sister Sally would be Sharon Carter. And the reason for her being Sharon, not just the blonde hair, but also the fact that she's in love with Linus, who is Steve Rogers, Captain America. Snoopy, of course, would have to be the Winter Soldier or Bucky Barnes. He's very stealthy, World War I flying ace, all that fun stuff. Peppermint Patty tends to get in a little bit of trouble at times, so that would be Diamondback, of course. Lucy, Linus's sister, would be Bernie Rosenthal, back to kind of psychoanalyze Cap a little bit, if need be. Woodstock, naturally, would be Red Wing, the Falcon's sidekick, companion. You have to have Pigpen in there. That would be D-Man. He's sometimes looked down upon a little bit dirty and stuff like that. And of course, on the piano, Schroeder would be Nick Fury. Happy holidays, guys. Keep on the great work with the podcast.
Mark, well done.
Yeah.
You know what? You got to throw in the Charlie Brown Christmas special, right? I mean, like that's a classic. Hopefully, watch every year. I'm a little surprised that he went with Steve as Linus as opposed to
Yeah.
Charlie Brown,
I
but
like
I
it though.
like it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a clever twist, right? I think it works. I think it definitely works. And I'd like to see Snoopy though with a mechanical arm. That's something I think that would work too. So
Would it be like like him having trouble with that folding chair and fighting it? Like it has mind of its own.
right, yeah.
Yeah,
It's a scroll.
yeah. And a lot of these people who are calling in, also are members of our Facebook group. And so, the Facebook group, I think it was this year that we changed it. It used to be Captain America Comic Book Fans Facebook group. Now it's Cap. And we did that because, we didn't want to get into Facebook jail, so to speak. So we changed that, and and we also made it a private group. So when you go in there, you can't really see what's going on unless you're a member of the group. So because of that, I think we've reduced the amount of new people coming into the group. But you know what? It's all about quality, Bob. And so, they have to answer certain questions about, who are their favorite Cap creators, but also agree to the no negativity rule. And so that's very, very important because it is an oasis from everywhere else. And I got to say, not only that, it's a very active group. So in 2024, we have over 1,800 posts this year. That means over 5 new posts a day. So there's always something to find in the
Yeah,
group.
yeah. And one of the cool things, and I don't know how many folks do this, but it's fun to go back in time and just type anything into that group's search function, anything you're interested in, because sure enough, there will have been something about it previously, and that is just a gold mine of great information about art, collectibles, statues, anything, ephemera, and of course the stories themselves. So it really is. For Cap fans, particularly new ones as well as old ones, it really is something that they should treasure because it's unique out there.
That's an excellent point. Yeah, it really has become a treasure trove of Captain America memorabilia, where people can use that search. You're absolutely right. And as I mentioned, very, very active. I also want to thank you and the moderators, Heath and Daniel, who help approve, right? We have like I said, over 1,800 new posts. Each one of those has to get approved, and we've also have nearly 12,000 comments
Right.
in
Yeah.
2024. So
Like we talk to each other, right? I mean, the four of us, Facebook Messenger, like, hey, keep an eye on this one this weekend, or what about this one? You think, what's the deal on this one? So I mean, there is a lot. Folks don't see it, but there's a lot that goes on in the background to keep that, as you said, an oasis.
And speaking of metrics, just a couple to share with you, Bob, about the podcast. So this year, 2024, over 130 hours of new material this year alone.
Well, that makes sense because I had planned to get in shape this year, and there's my gym time. So,
Um, so just looking at Spotify itself, 59% of our listeners on Spotify discovered us this year. And here, this blows my mind. Our show, our little show, Bob, was in the top 10% of video podcasts on Spotify. Think about that.
all right, I'm thinking
Of
about
all
that.
the video podcasts on
Yeah.
Spotify, our show was in the top
Yeah.
10%.
I am thinking about renegotiating my contract. That's what I'm thinking about.
Well, but the funny thing is if like you go to our YouTube channel, it's like, oh, this one only had like 40 views or something like
Right.
that. And
Yeah.
it's because people are watching it on Spotify. They're not watching it on YouTube,
All right.
which is interesting to me. But we did make the top 10 podcasts on Spotify for 89 people, and 21 people had us as their number one podcast for Spotify in 2024. So
21.
yeah.
Yeah.
When they get their little Spotify Wrapped, they're like,
Yeah.
"Your number one podcast." Our little logo is going to show up there.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
Any idea what our top listened to episode in 2024 is?
I have no idea. I mean, it could be any one of those interviews. It could have been, maybe our special guests, like our nightcaps. I don't know, Rick.
I think you were dead on when you said interview. It was episode 182, interview with Chip Zdarsky.
You don't say.
I did say.
Or you just
And
did, yeah.
yeah, and that's the power of when our guests share this on their own social media.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, okay.
All right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Top 10 countries. Top 10 countries listening to us in 2024. United States being the number one. That's 82% of our listeners are in the U.S. And then the following is similar to last year. So we have Canada, UK, Portugal, Australia, Germany, Singapore, Brazil, Greece, and France, rounding out the top 10.
Those are that's an eclectic mix there, between Singapore and Greece and Australia and Portugal. I mean, I know it's not a lot of listeners. Maybe it's one, here or there, but that's still pretty cool though, I think,
Oh yeah, over 100
worldwide reach, Rick.
Yeah, over 100 different countries listen to us. Yeah.
That's crazy. North Korea in there by chance? No.
You asked me that last year.
Yeah. Well, I'm still
Yes.
hoping.
Yeah,
I'm hoping.
yeah.
Like,
It
hoping
just
word's
we
getting
have
around.
South Korea
Yeah.
and Korea.
Okay.
So I'm assuming
yeah.
Korea is North Korea.
I know Kim Jong-un. I know you're listening.
That's right.
Yeah.
Bob, we got another submission, and you know what? When Grant did "It's a Wonderful Life," apparently it's popular because Steve Rogers himself sent in a video of "It's a Marvelous Life."
All right. Well, it's one of Frank Capra's most famous movies, so for sure, not surprising.
I'm Steve Rogers from San Antonio, Texas, wearing my Captain America Christmas sweater, attempting to put Captain America characters into my favorite Christmas movie and do it in 1 minute. Republic Pictures presents It's a Marvelous Life. Steve Rogers, a skinny kid from Brooklyn who is picked on by bullies, shows his heroic nature when he rescues his young friend Bucky Barnes from drowning. As the U.S. enters World War II, Steve attempts to enlist, but is rejected as 4F. Despondent at being unable to defend his country, he stands on a bridge considering his next move. Suddenly, he sees someone fall into the river. Without hesitation, Steve dives in to save him. It turns out that he rescued Professor Reinstein, who had seen Steve get rejected by the Army, and deliberately jumped in as a test of Steve's bravery and character. The professor had sensed that Steve would be a worthy candidate for Project Rebirth. Receiving the super soldier formula, Steve confronts and exposes corrupt banker Henry Potter, who has been swindling Steve's friends and neighbors out of their homes and savings. It turns out that Potter is secretly the Red Skull in disguise. Remember, no man is a failure who has the super soldier formula coursing through his veins. Merry Christmas.
That was great. He took it up a notch with that one, Rick, and I think it was very clever recast of It's a Wonderful Life, It's a Marvelous Life, and he used some compelling characters there. And I always knew there was something off about Potter, banker Potter. So yeah, great job, Mr. Rogers.
Yeah, nicely done, Steve. I like the little twist in the fact that Steve showed his bravery in another way, right? And he dove in after to save the man. So I like that. It was pretty clever.
Yeah. You know what else I like? This Steve's been a Cap fan for a while, because you notice up on that shelf that on the wall, the Captain America license plate from 1975.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
props
That's
to you,
pretty
my
cool.
friend.
And he looks like he's got that Red Ryder BB gun from A Christmas Story up there too.
It does,
I like
yeah.
it. Yeah, I like that.
Yep.
So Bob, I think it's time to exchange gifts.
That sounds like a plan, my friend. All right. I like it.
All right, who should go first?
Whoo! I better go first, Rick.
Yeah?
I better go first.
Why?
You're welcome to go
That's
first.
right. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, I because I want to build the anticipation for
Okay.
our listeners.
All right. You go ahead. You go ahead and open.
You are our captain. So, all right. All right. So we got it right here. We got it right here. It came nicely packaged. All right. All right. Nice. I like that you didn't cheap out with generic tape. The good Scotch stuff. I love it. I can't show it, but oh, here it is. Oh my gosh. Hold on. How do I do this? There we go. This is a Nick Fury commission from our friend Mark Stegbauer.
Yes.
Yeah, I love it. Oh, that's awesome, Rick. Thank you very much.
You're absolutely welcome. So back in July, Mark was doing a fundraiser for the Alzheimer's Association.
Right. Yeah, I remember that.
And so he said, I'll do, a list of these characters and, make a donation to the Alzheimer's Association. So knowing that that was near and dear to both of our hearts, I went ahead and did two. So I did this one. Here's my Captain America.
Yeah, there
Mark
it is.
did for me. And then I had him do a Nick Fury for you.
Oh, well, that's awesome. Thank you so much. I love it. I've got a couple Stegs. I've got a couple Bucky Barnes. One is the Winter Soldier, and one is his original teenage version. And I love Steg's a great guy, does good work, and he's always supporting great causes. So it's awesome that you jumped in to support his fundraiser effort, and to boot, got me a great commission on top of that. So thank you.
You're absolutely welcome.
All right. All right.
All right. So I have two here. Which one should I open first?
Open the floppy one first, Rick.
All right.
Yeah, open the floppy one.
Okay.
All right.
You wrap this yourself?
I did, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
With my little kindergarten paper scissors.
Oh, cool. A Captain America t-shirt. And this is what?
Well, here's the thing. Rick, I every week we gather, and you're always sporting a Captain America t-shirt. You're very, consistent about that.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like I wanted to bump up your wardrobe choices. So I ordered you several t-shirts, and only one came in on time to ship you. So of course, the Dave Hoover one.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Right.
Yeah, I remember when this artwork became available on eBay. Very cool. Yeah, I don't have a cap on a motorcycle, so
Well, you do now, Rick,
I do now.
because we talk about cap on motorcycles all the time and about the environmentally unfriendly nature of Cap's motorcycles.
And you can tell he's moving because of
He
the
is,
exhaust.
he is. But Rick, I have three more for you right here.
Oh,
Three more
excellent.
T-shirts.
Are they all the same one, just different colors?
Yeah, just all the same. Dave Hoover. No, they're all different. They're all different. They're all different than the ones you have now. So
Okay.
you're going to go into the new year with a whole new podcast wardrobe. So I will
Excellent.
get these three. They just came in actually today, so I'll get them shipped out to you this week. So
Well, thank you, Bob.
you got
I
that.
can't wait to see it.
All right. All right, now you got to go on to part two. As I said, you are for listeners, video and audio. You are our captain. You are the Steve Rogers in our eye, and so
So I'm opening up something that feels like it's a picture frame of something.
yeah,
And so
you are. This is how I see you, Rick, when I close my eyes at night.
Where did you get this picture from?
That picture, the one of you mean?
Yeah.
Right off Facebook, my friend. There you go. So
and the mask is being tossed in the back.
You don't need
He's
that.
like, I don't need that stinking mask.
I want everybody to know exactly who I am.
Oh, that's pretty cool. I like the
I
background, all the different. So you designed this?
I just did the background, so I
The
will send
background's
you.
cool.
Yeah, I just did the background. It's actually a cover to. I think it was a variant for. I can't number 19 or something from the first Brubaker Epting run, but in any case.
Thank you for using some Photoshop and giving me a tan.
Oh, of course. Well, yeah, I didn't do it myself. Somebody on Etsy did that for me. But I will send you I'll send you the image file so that you can put it on your business card or make a standee, for your home office.
No, what are you talking about? I'm giving it to my wife, so that she can put it up on her dresser next to the bed.
Go. That's how she sees you too, I'm sure.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
Very thoughtful gift.
Yes. Well,
Thank
as
you.
I said, you have been voicing Steve Rogers now for 4 years, Rick. So when we think of Steve Rogers, we hear your voice. So why not see your face?
That's very cool. Thank you so much. All right. We got another submission. We got James Foley, who is one of our super soldiers patrons. He sent in a submission as well.
Hey, Rick and Bob. Thank you for an awesome year of podcasts covering such an array of topics, great interviews, coming attractions, good cap stories. My favorite was the going through the streets of poison. This year, I'd love to hear Cap Volume 1, 355 through 357, the Sisters of Sin storyline. It is so locked in the 80s, 90s, I could see y'all having a blast with it. For my classic holiday story, I have to go with Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer from 1964. I would cast it mostly from the Captain storyline by Grunwald, my all-time favorite Cap run. Demolition Man would be my choice for Rudolph, Nomad as his adversary Fireball, Vagabond as Clarice, Hawkeye would be Hermie the dentist elf. I'd see Sam Wilson as Yukon Cornelius, Abominable Snowman would be Crossbones, and of course Steve as Santa. Looking forward to another great years. Happy holidays to all my fellow Cap fans.
Thank you, James. That was really cool. I appreciate it. Thank you for the anniversary wishes as well. Rudolph, what do you think?
It's a classic, right? 1964, Rick. I mean, that it has been around for decades and it still is good as ever. When it's on, you can't turn it off. You got to watch it all the way through to the end.
Now, he wants us, he made a suggestion for 2025. He said, was it Captain America 354, 357? I can't remember, but we'll have to take a look at that. The Sisters of Sin I gotta look that up. Is was that? Didn't we do that? Wasn't that the one where I mentioned it before? Like, right, Cap got de-aged. Is that the
Right?
one he's talking about?
I think so. I think so. Right? And I thought we did that way, 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 way back when. Unless I did it for a different podcast, but I'm not on any other podcasts. So
You're not?
no, no.
Yeah, it was 355. Yeah, that was the one where yeah, Mark Grunwald's story and it was he gets depowered by Cersei. I I'm normally really good about remembering like the issue numbers for this, but I thought we did it. We'll have
I
to take a
thought so.
look at it, James.
Unless we talked about it at length, but I mean I do
Maybe
recall it.
maybe it was when we talked about it with Al Milgrom, because Al Milgrom was inking that, and then he penciled it, and we had Al Milgrom on the show, and I think we talked about.
Yeah, that might have been
Remember,
it.
we talked about the neck being snapped, and it was like, what was
Yeah,
it like
yeah.
drawing that?
Right. There you go.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's what it was.
Yeah. Hey Rick,
All
did
right,
you know that there is a Marvel connection with Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer?
what would that be, Bob?
Well, I'm glad you asked. Thank you. There are now, of course, it's a stop motion animation, film, right? And so lots of different voices, but there were three characters voiced in that show. So let's start with Hermie. Remember Hermie? What do you want to be?
Yeah, you want to be a
You
dentist?
want to be a dentist. So it was voiced by a guy by the name of Paul Solis. He also voiced Spider-Man in the 1967 animated Spider-Man show.
Spider-Man, Spider-Man.
Yeah, so Paul Solis, Hermie the dentist, was the voice of Peter Parker and Spider-Man from that show.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So the guy who voiced Donner and Coach Comet in the Rudolph show, guy by the name of Paul Kligman, he also did some voices in that show. He voiced J. Jonah Jameson and Harry Osborn in that show.
How about that?
Yeah, and in the 1966.
Wait a minute, I can hear it because he was the coach,
Yes.
right? And he was like, "Hey guys, don't do this," and then Parker,
right?
Like yeah, I could totally hear that now.
Yeah. So there was also a 1966 Marvel animated series called Marvel Superheroes, and he voiced the Red Skull and Masterman in that show.
How about that?
Yes, and then Mrs. Claus was voiced by Peg Dixon. And in the Marvel Spider-Man animated show, she voiced Mary Jane Watson and Betty Brant. So there you have it. Three voice actors from Rudolph were also voice actors in the Marvel animated series of that same decade.
That's some research on your part. Well done, Bob.
That's what I do. That's what I do, Rick. So
yeah, that's what you bring to the show.
that's it. Yes.
All right. I think it's time for you and I to come up with ours. Right now, I have to pivot because I was going to do Home Alone.
This is like like the fantasy draft. Yeah.
Yep. Once again, Tom steals from me. So
yeah.
I've thought about it, and you know that opening song I did. I'm Mr. Cold Miser.
Yep.
I'm going to go with The Year Without a Santa Claus.
Nice. Good,
1974.
Good yeah.
All right. So I'm going to take you through the story.
All right.
Ready for this?
Yep.
All right. So Steve Rogers awakens with a cold in early December. And when he overhears the S.H.I.E.L.D. doctor sarcastically say that nobody cares about Captain America anymore, Steve decides to forego his annual speech. So hoping to change Steve's mind, Sharon Carter instructs two elves named Jingle and Jangle, played by Sam Wilson and Bucky Barnes, to seek evidence of faith in Cap. So Jingle and Jangle leave with another former partner who wants to tag along, D-Man, and they land in a small town in the southern United States called Southtown. I didn't write this. Unfortunately, their efforts to find faith in Cap are fruitless, and D-Man is arrested for being mistaken as a homeless person and taken to jail. So after learning that D-Man is missing, Steve travels to Southtown disguised as a civilian named Roger Stevens. There, he meets a boy named Iggy, played by Ram, and his family. And after Steve leaves to rescue D-Man, Iggy realizes Steve's true identity and resolves to help. So Jingle Jangle and Iggy visit the town's mayor, who agreed to release D-Man if they make it snow in Southtown. Now Sharon Carter collects the trio, and then they go and they see Snow Miser, played by Baron Zemo, and he's the keeper of the cold weather machine to dispatch snow in Southtown for a day. But he says he can't oblige because Southtown is situated within Heat Miser's domain, played by the Red Skull. So they approach Heat Miser, and he offers to cooperate if Snow Miser hands over the North Pole. And then there's a whole bunch of singing and dancing, and I'm Mr. Heat Miser by the Red Skull. And when neither proves willing to cede to the other's wishes, Sharon Carter consults Mother Nature, played by Madam Hydra, Viper, who persuades the Skull and Zemo to reach a compromise. Now, as the day of Steve's speech approaches, the people of the world send messages to Steve, generating international headlines. And touched by the outpouring of faith in humanity, Steve decides to give his annual speech after all.
Nicely done, Rick. Nicely done. One of my favorite Christmas animated shows, and you've managed to turn it into a Marvel Wonderland. So well done. I enjoyed that. I think that would be fun.
Thank you very much.
Definitely would be fun. So
yeah. All right. Yeah, well, I had fun coming up with it. So
yeah.
How about you, Bob? What famous holiday story do you want to recast?
Well, it's the best Christmas movie ever. I think everyone would agree to that. And that
Christmas
is
Vacation?
1954's White Christmas with Bing Crosby and Danny Kaye. So this is a great movie with songs by Irving Berlin. So everybody knows White Christmas by Bing Crosby. And so I was inspired by a old Golden Age story called Red Skull, An Ear for Murder. And this came out in Captain America Comics number 7 from October 1941. And in that one, Red Skull's up to his shenanigans again, and he's using what I can't remember what. Chopin's Funeral March as a harbinger of murder. So every time somebody hears that song, somebody gets knocked off. Now, this just so happens to happen at about the same time that at Camp Lehigh, Steve and Bucky are pressured into joining a camp play with Betty Ross. So I was sort of motivated by that old Golden Age story. So if you know White Christmas, it's about two main characters, Bing Crosby, who plays Captain Bob Wallace, and in this instance, that will be Steve Rogers playing that part, and Private Phil Davis, played in the original movie, by Danny Kaye. In this case, it will be Bucky Barnes. And so they are two soldiers in World War II in Europe, and they're performers. And they are assigned to the 151st Division. In our case, of course, it would be the 26th Infantry Regiment of the 1st Infantry Division, so the Blue Spaders. So they're in Europe, and the Steve Rogers character saves Bucky Barnes from a wall falling down, and he gets injured, but he recuperates. But while he's in the hospital, they both realize they have a love of performing, and so they pledge that when they get out of the service, they're going to become performers, and they're gonna make a team, and they're gonna go to Hollywood and be performers. And that's exactly what they do. So life goes on for them after the war, and they are performers. And then one day they get a letter from a former serviceman that they had been with in Europe during World War II, and the letter says that his two sisters are singers themselves, and would these two performers now, Bucky and Steve, who are now famous, would they go to New York City to observe his sisters perform and maybe give him some tips? So they head on out there, and it turns out these are two very young, attractive ladies, and one of them is our Betty Ross, and the other. Now, I think I might have mentioned, Rick, that I recently came across a Captain America Sentinel of Liberty card, and it was signed by only the first name, Marilyn. But I went back and I looked, and it was issue 16 of Captain America Comics, where they published the winners of the prize in the Sentinel of Liberty Club, and there was a Marilyn Diamond. So, for the sake of this recast, Marilyn Diamond plays the younger sister of she had been in the Sentinels of Liberty and always had been a fan of Bucky, and they had a chance to meet in this what if version of the story. So they get there, and at that time, Steve and Bucky get a letter from their former commanding officer, who now is retired, and he owns an inn in Vermont called the Columbia Inn. And they're having a hard time. They got a big Christmas pageant coming up, but they don't have anybody headlining the performances, and the inn is about ready to go to bankrupt, and the banker is trying to foreclose it. And so the two girls convince Bucky and Steve to go to Vermont to help out their former boss, who in this case is not Major General Thomas Waverly like in the original movie, but General Chester Phillips, who's now the proprietor of the Columbia Inn. And they get up there and they realize, yep, this is really bad. The general wants to give up on the inn and go back into the service, but he gets a letter, and the letter says that he can't come back into the service on active duty. And so to try to cheer him up, Bucky and Steve go on TV to one of the most famous performing TV shows in the country. In this case, it's in the movie, it's run by a TV producer, Ed Harrison. But in our case, guess who it's going to be, Rick?
Who is it?
Who's now retired and an executive TV producer? It's Mike Duffy, of course, Sergeant Mike Duffy, right? And they get on the TV and they invite all of the members of the Blue Spaders to come up to Vermont to the retired general's inn for this big Christmas pageant. And then the rest of the movie, of course, is them putting on this big pageant that brings in all kinds of business, and they're able to save the inn from the banker, who, by the way, who is that? Oh, of course, it's the Red Skull with his three henchmen, what I like to call the terrible tellers, because of course they work for the bank. It's Batroc and Machete and the swordsmen who are trying to, derail this performance. But it's got some great songs. And can you imagine? I can't even imagine, Rick, to hear Bucky and Steve perform "Gee, I Wish I Was Back in the Army," which is my favorite song. I love White Christmas, performed by Bing Crosby. Mm-hmm. But to hear "Gee, I Wish I Was Back in the Army" performed by Bucky and Steve. Mwah. So it's a wonderful, wonderful story. Of course, love blooms. Bucky ends up marrying the younger of the daughters, and Steve and Betty get together and profess their love for each other. And it's a wonderful Christmas for everyone. Gee, I wish I was back in the army. The army was the place to find romance. Soldiers and whacks, the whacks who dressed in slacks, dancing cheek and pants to pants. There's a lot to be said for the army. A gal was never lost for company. A million handsome guys with longing in their eyes, and all you had to do was pick the age, the weight, the size. Oh, gee, I wish I was back in the army. Yeah, can you imagine that, Rick? That would be awesome.
Yeah, so cool. Very, very nice. I like that, Bob. Good job. Wow, there's so much to unpack here. Right? I mean, obviously, you gave it a lot of thought, and it set up perfectly. And I'd watch that. Heck yeah.
I'm going to send you that song later so you can enjoy it as you're fading off to sleep tonight.
Oh, well, it's okay.
Oh, no, I'm going to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. Well, this is great. So many different ideas here, and thank you to everybody who sent them in. We never, our listeners are the best, right? They have such great imaginations and love for Cap. So always love hearing all of these. But before we go, Bob, there's a few things we have to get to. And I did mention there is a villain that called in as well. Let's take a look at the 2024 bucket list. There were some things that actually were left over from 23 and 22. So, the Patriot miniseries. You said we were going to get to that. We didn't get to that.
Yeah, we didn't get to that one, did we?
You wanted to do 2 Golden Age stories. We didn't get to that.
No, didn't do it.
Medusa Effect. Hey, guess what? Ding, ding, ding.
Check that one off. Yeah.
Cross that off. Episode 176. What If 44? Ding, ding, ding.
Okay. All right.
Cross that one off. Episode 193. March Madness. Of course, we did that again. We did, this time it was Favorite Artists Revisit, and Zek won that. We wanted to do Theater of War. Ding, ding, ding. Episode 172, recap. You said you wanted to do annuals. Ding, ding, ding. We did annual number 4, the one with Magneto.
Yeah.
In episode 171. And then we wanted to do the community theater. And of course, we did that in episode 200. There was a few others that we didn't get to. Dead Men Running, Top 10 Speeches, and a deep dive on Jeff Mace. Now, the last 2, the top 10 speeches and deep dive on Jeff Mace, that's all you, my friend. You were supposed to handle that. So I don't feel guilty we didn't get to it.
It's just time, right? Just got to pick a day.
All right. But we know what this tells me? Let's see. Episode 171, 172, 176, and then 193, 200. That tells me if we don't get to this bucket list in the first quarter, it ain't getting into it. All right, we've moved on.
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
So what's on the 2025 bucket list? So we're carrying over the Patriot miniseries. I think we should do that as a recap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Deep dive on Jeff Mace and the top 10 speeches. You let me know when you want to do those, my friend.
All right. Fair enough.
All right. What else should go on our 25 bucket list?
Ooh. Well, I've got some ideas, Rick. I'm sure you do as well. I've been thinking about this. One of the things I liked, I don't know, it's my personal preference. But I think a lot of folks enjoy this is when we offer them something a little extra, right? A little something they may not have been aware of before. And you've been open to this before, and I appreciate that. Because I think, a lot of folks, maybe they read Captain America comic, but there's so much other material out there. There's one-shots and miniseries. There's things people never heard of before. So I had a couple suggestions. You remember that one from 2000, the Captain America Guardian of Freedom? It was by Peter David.
Do not.
And Mark. You don't remember that one?
You said Peter David?
Yep, Peter David, Ron Franz.
No, I don't remember this at all.
Yeah, it's a one. It's supposedly written and drawn by Steve Rogers.
I don't know this one.
It's credited. It's a one shot. It's a really cool story. It is credited to Steve Rogers as the artist himself, and but it's cool. And I think a lot of folks maybe haven't heard of it before. It might be fun to introduce them to it.
All right, we'll add it to the bucket list. What else you got?
All right. So another one I was reading recently that I thought might be fun to go over, and that was the Iron Man and Captain America Casualties of War one shot from 2007. So
was that a Civil War tie-in?
It was, and it was one where Steve and Tony agree to meet at the Avengers Mansion, which is in shambles, to try to talk through their differences and figure out how they got where they are. And it's a really good story because it highlights their ideological differences, but it also talks about their history together. It's a powerful story, and again, it's one of those one shots that maybe folks didn't pick up, don't even know that's out there, and I think that would be interesting to a lot of folks.
Yeah, I loved that story when it came out, and it ties in nicely with one of the things that I was going to suggest, and that was maybe doing a recap of Civil War.
Ooh, okay.
Because I think it's an important, very, very important, pivotal story. Of course, it's the whole entire Marvel universe, but but Cap plays a huge part in it.
Sure,
And
yeah.
and it's a pivotal story in what leads up to the death of Captain America.
Hmm.
And spoiler alert, sorry, but
You haven't finished that series.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I was going to suggest doing a recap of Civil War. So I think we could possibly maybe do the recap of Civil War and then follow that up with casualties of war one shot, like, panel by panel.
Yeah, yeah. I think if you, I mean, it's probably been a long time since you read it, but dig in, check it out. So I'm fired up about Captain America and the Invaders, the Bahama Triangle. That one shot from 2019 by Roy Thomas and Jerry Ordway. Very fun story. Has Namor, has Human Torch, has Heinrich Zemo. They escort Cap undercover as a sailor, escorts FDR to the Bahamas to meet with the King of England, or the Prince at the time, and of course, all hell ensues when Zemo shows up. So it's a good story, and again, it's got Namor and the Human Torch as well. So might be fun to tackle that one. And then I got one just to throw at you, Rick. What about the top 10 worst Golden Age Captain America foes? Because there's a lot of them. There's some
Okay.
wacky ones.
Okay. My initial thought on this
Yeah.
is there's so much in the Golden Age that I am not personally familiar with, and I think
Yeah.
probably a lot of today's listeners aren't familiar with.
Right.
So, um, how would we separate the worst from the other ones? Because aren't they all bad? I
You'd
mean,
have to rely on obviously Red Skull was not a bad foe, right? I mean,
yeah. Are we going to talk about Armless Tiger Man?
he didn't go up against Cap in the Golden Age. So I mean the ones out of the Captain America comics books.
Okay.
So there's crazy ones folks had never heard of before. They tend to die in that issue. So but it might be fun for folks who aren't familiar with the Golden Age stories of Captain America to hear a little bit about. We know that some Golden Age villains got resurrected, particularly by Roy Thomas in the 70s, early 80s, but a lot of them didn't, and they're in the dustbin of history. But might be fun, might be a one-off sort of thing just for the fun of it.
You know what? I say it. It's all you, my friend.
All right.
You want to tackle this one? I'm on board. My top 10 list. I mentioned this before, but I definitely want to do this in 2025. Is I want to do the top 10 villain groups.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're talking, Hydra and AIM and Serpent Society
Yep.
and all of them. Right.
Right. Yeah.
So I think that'd be a lot of fun too.
All right. Yeah. I think folks would enjoy that as well. So you got anything else?
Yeah, I think we should, take a look at what John sent in, which was the cap 355 to 357. That could be fun.
Okay. Good. I like that. All right. I got one. I got one more for you. Ready?
All right, let's hear it.
This is the Generation Sam Wilson Captain America, Steve Rogers Captain America one shot by Nick Spencer and Paul Renaud. So I really enjoyed that book. It's a great story with a great message. And basically it involves Sam Wilson going back in time to World War II to interact with Steve Rogers, who is very early in his career as Captain America. I'll just leave it at that. But it's interesting to see them interact with each other and how that interaction plays out through the rest of Steve Rogers and Sam Wilson's life.
Yeah, no, it's a great story. Yeah, 100%. I think that's a great one.
All right.
And then speaking of 2025, the long tail story. So we're just finishing up. We have one more to go, and it's going to be coming up very soon. And that is of the Secret Empire. We're going to finish that up as that 6-part story. And based on the votes that we got, the logical successor to that is just move right on into Nomad, right? So the
Yeah.
Steve Englehart story that deals with the fallout of the Secret Empire. So
Yeah.
that will be our long tail story that we will continue on the second Wednesday of every month following Secret Empire. So look for that to kick off in February.
Great choice. Great choice. I think folks are going to be very pleased with that.
And then lastly, 2025 in March, Cap Madness, we have done favorite artist 2 different times. We've done favorite writer. We've done favorite cover. Now I want to do favorite Captain America co-stars. And we'll do 16 heroes
Mm-hmm.
and 16 villains. And they all battle it out. And then the top hero and the top villain battle it out. And we'll get voted by you, the Captain America fans, the Captain America listeners, who your favorite Captain America co-star is of all time.
All right. I'm calling it right now. It's going to be Red Skull versus Diamondback.
That's good. I mean, if Tom Boyd and a few others had their way, right?
That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
People can't resist. Can't resist the Diamondback.
And then also next episode, we're gonna have a little fun top 10 list.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I like that. It's secret project.
Right. Well, no, we're gonna reveal it here.
Oh, you are? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All
I
right.
mean,
All right.
I mean, listen, if people have listened this long,
They deserve it, right?
they deserve to know. Next episode, which comes out on January 1st, it's going to be top 10 Captain America New Year's resolutions.
This is going to be fun. I can't wait to start ruminating about this one. I'm going to get liquored up first. So.
Yeah, I think we really should, right? All right, Bob, we got one more submission. And as I promised, there is a villain who also wanted to share a classic holiday special recast by Captain America characters.
Bonjour, mon ami. This is your good friend Batroc, well, a friend to Bob at least. Batroc has come to bring the holiday cheer and to say if the Capitan were to be, involved in the holiday, it would have to be the Muppet Christmas Carol. Not just the Christmas Carol, but the Muppet Christmas Carol. In that way, Captain America would become the Muppet, no? Oui. Of course, you have the real life cast in the Muppet movies. And that real person would have to be Batroc, no? Oui. Batroc would play... Are you ready? Batroc would play Tiny Tim, and he would cast away his crutch and leap, leap, leap.
Tiny Tim will leap.
It's a Christmas miracle. Oh my goodness.
God bless us, everyone.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Batroc. Thank you very much for calling in and giving us that one. Absolutely beautiful. Love it.
Never disappoints. Never disappoints.
Yeah. Oh, Bob, I gotta say, hard to believe it's been 4 years.
Yeah.
Look for your fruit slash flower
Yes.
gift at some point.
Yep. Box of bananas coming your way, my friend.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Round mail.
Yeah. And listen, Bob, I the best part to me of this show is every Tuesday night I get to chat with my buddy.
There you go. There you go. Yep.
It has been a great year. I know it's been a tough year for you. Yeah. And been through a lot, and I'm glad that I've been able to help you at least a little bit on a Tuesday night, and enjoy each other's company. So thank you for being the best gosh darn co-host out there.
Well, same to you, my friend. And it's our oasis, and we're lucky because we get to invite our listeners into this experience with us every Tuesday, and hopefully they experience a little bit of that fun and a little bit of that levity and a little bit of peace from what goes on in the world around us, personally and in just broader sense, because that's what it's all about. It's just about having fun, enjoying what we like, what we love, and sharing it with others.
Yeah. Again, God bless us, everyone. All right. He's Bob Lucius. I'm Rick Verbonis. Thank you for listening to Captain America Comic Book Fans podcast. And as always, please rate, review, subscribe wherever you listen. If you're on YouTube, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you share that episode and send us a screenshot to enter you into the contest. Love listening to your feedback wherever that is, Facebook, or even a 5-star review on Apple. So, as always, thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Captain America Comic Book Fans podcast. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Ho, ho, ho.